All right, good evening. Oh, Cameron, you're nothing. This ain't your fault. Your picture isn't where it should be. Let me fix that real quick for everybody.
I mean, on my end, my picture's exactly where it's supposed to be.
There we go. It's just been so long since we've actually had your beautiful face on camera.
Yeah, it can't be helped. I have to work a lot.
So, there's I want to touch something real quick before we actually get into the content of this show. Interestingly, we had a bunch of people watching on Periscope just a second ago, but they all gave up. And Alex McDonald says, "Fuckers, he's trying to get us demonetized. Go away, troll. Go away." Nah, for reals. How you doing, Sugar? Alex, I hope you come out to wrestling tomorrow night. It's gonna be a ball. And Rod says that we should read the sign and go home. Or rather, he says long-haired freaky people. So I've got Jeffrey, I've got Patrick, Dave, Danielle, Alex, Rod, and Patrick again. Hey. Dave loves your Jennifer Aniston haircut there, Cameron.
Hey, man, I make it look better than she does. I've been told more than once by female hairdressers, God, I wish I had your hair.
Yeah, I get that a lot too, because it's curly. Anyway, so we're doing a show. We're doing a pop-up live stream right now. Obviously, we're gonna be, and by me when Cameron's not available, but as much as possible, I'm gonna start trying to do shows in the evening when there's something worth talking about. For one, because. Oh, damn. Okay, I'll tell him in a minute, Alex. For one, because
I can see the chat.
I know. Yeah, but there's all these people watching. I have to tell them.
I know.
But for one, our buddy Alex Bleeping Jones says that he thinks we'll get a little more traction with an evening show. I'm going to keep doing the morning show, but I think we'll pop in and do these a little more often. So. And I'm so glad that Alex is here watching tonight so I can get his 2 cents maybe on some of this. We're going to talk a little bit about Adam Toledo. And it is a tragedy, okay?
Yeah.
It is absolutely a tragedy. 13-year-old boy is dead.
Yep, died violently.
I'm not going to say he deserved it, but I might say that he contributed to his own death.
Oh, I think it's fair to say that this is a clean shoot.
I agree.
I mean, it's ugly as you want to call it. I mean, this is an absolutely justifiable use of force.
And so we're not going to play the video. We're not going to play the video here. But the body cam footage and the various surveillance footage from around the incident are available. And Brandon Tatum, the Officer Tatum, has a pretty good rundown on that. And his expert analysis, his having been a former cop and a former SWAT officer, he's got the right level of analysis to deal with that. I'm going to talk about a little bit. Hey, Alex Bleeping Jones just joined us, brother. I was just talking about you. And telling him that half the reason we're doing a live show right now is because you think we'll get more traction with a later show. But anyway, so one of the reasons I want to talk about this is because of what the narrative was. There were a bunch of articles running that said unarmed, no gun, etc., etc. Those are all false. Those are patently false. The boy had a gun moments before he was shot. And if you go and watch the body cam footage, it's very clear that what happened from the angle the officer was seeing what's happening. The officer's approaching when Adam stops and turns toward him. The officer's approaching him. Now, it's 3 o'clock in the morning in the dark, and this is a kid that's, at 13 years old, you're man-sized. I mean, shit, at 13 years old, I was 6 feet tall. So the officer's approaching this kid from the left and can clearly see the gun in the kid's hand. And what he did, where he screwed up, is instead of dropping the weapon and moving slowly, and it's a panic maneuver, I know, but he tried to throw the gun in the same motion that he raised his hands. So what the cops saw was gun, and then the kid's hand
Rapid
moves
motion,
forward.
yeah.
And he responded to that. It's not great.
Yep.
It's not great, but that's what happened.
And it's going to be 100% justified. Like it already is 100% justified. So, one of the things that Chris and I did, we kind of stumbled into this accidentally. We've been doing this YouTube thing in different iterations for years. And one of the things that has been the most important is that we would always be honest. We'd talk about what's fact, what's our opinion, what's rooted in philosophy, and the conversation just goes where it goes. And I've said more than once on the show that if I'm going to be wrong, let me be wrong on air. Let somebody correct me. We can all learn something. I'm long past afraid of being wrong. And in that spirit, without even meaning to, Chris and I started talking about things like, gosh, every time you hear the Dindu narrative, it ends up not being true. Like, ever, at all. Like, not even a little bit. The closest you could come is to Mir Rice. And that was the rare incidence of an absolute accident. And that narrative has evolved into your martyrs are monsters. It's not just as soon as you hear Dindu, trust me, Dindu ain't it. No. Not only did the Dindu actually do, they usually did a lot. So, and in this case, this all started.
You can't. Yeah, I expect that Adam Toledo. I'm sorry to interrupt, Cameron. I expect that Adam Toledo is going to be a rare exception to the rule that if you see a Dindu headline, there's going to be a long history of violent crime. That has been a rule that has proved true over and over and over in these cases. This young man is going to be an exception to that rule for one reason and one reason only. At 13, he just hadn't had time to rack up that rap sheet.
Yep. So, I mean, let's be real clear. The police officers were responding to 8 shots being fired.
And we do know conclusively from the surveillance cameras at the scene, it was the grown man, the 21-year-old that was with 13-year-old Adam Toledo. It was the 21-year-old that fired the 8 shots, which leads credence to another theory that I have that we'll discuss in a minute. But we do know that it was that guy. It was the older guy whose name has not been released, or at least I haven't seen it yet, who actually fired the 8 shots.
So, I mean, just to set the scene, it's 3:00 in the morning. It's Chicago, and a call comes in about shots being fired in what I am going to guess is one of the more charming portions of the city. I think it's fair to make that assumption. So the cops that roll up already know they're coming up to a dangerous situation. There's no question about it whatsoever.
Yeah, and real quick, you mentioned it's Chicago. So murders this year rose in Chicago by 33%. This is according to the Chicago Sun-Times. 33% over the same period for last year. And that is a total, that makes for a total of 40 officers and 4 sergeants to a carjacking. Looks like 800 shooting victims, 131 murders reported in the first 3 months, right? And we're halfway through April, so we got another 2 weeks of statistics that haven't even made it there yet.
Didn't it take us years to lose 3,000 soldiers in Iraq?
Yeah.
And so Chicago is on pace to put
There's a
up
reason. There's a reason we call it Chirac.
Yeah. Oh, I've never put that together before. Wow. Okay. Wow, you just kind of
Really?
yeah.
It's
Look,
it's like
I
with
said,
cabbages.
we can learn things on air. It's okay. I just learned something on air
You know why they call them contact lenses?
because they make contact.
Yeah, it's like with cabbages.
So, anyhow, cops roll up, and oh, now the Polytech show is commenting from YouTube. That's phenomenal.
That's fantastic.
So the cops roll up. They know it's a dangerous situation. They know there's a gun involved.
Yeah, they were called on shots fired at 3:00 in the morning, right?
Yeah, I mean that's already like, DEFCON whatever you want to assign it. It's probably appropriate.
It's DEFCON now.
Fair enough. So they get there, they roll up, two men-shaped humans run away. They chase them, and then things, and it all happens so quickly. So they run the kid down, and if you want to go back and you want to watch Officer Tatum's or anybody else's analysis of the video, and even left-wing sites that have done write-ups about it, can't get around the fact that the cop told the kid, he said, "Quit fucking running," and he said, "Fucking drop it." So, the kid's running, and the cop sees the gun. He tells him to drop it. And technically, when he was shot, he did not have the gun in his hand. That is correct. He was putting his hands up.
He had been unarmed for almost a whole second.
That's correct. He had been unarmed for almost an entire second. And when you're talking about less than a second in a situation like that, I mean, what are you going to do?
So let me tell you about running bad guys down in dark alleys. Afghanistan, all the I use the word very loosely. All the kind of localized civilization. They're mud huts and little mud compounds. And when I say mud, I mean they literally. You've seen the guys that take the stick and they dig a palace with a pool in the ground. It's that, but it's not as pretty. And real quick, Polytech just said he's going to stream in the morning if we want to come on the show again. You can't do it, I know, because you've got a thing.
Yeah, I'm working tomorrow. I'd love to.
I'll give you a maybe. Polytech, I'll give you a maybe on that. I'd like to, but so anyway, it's all these mud huts with these little narrow alleyways, and I mean narrow. You can't drive a vehicle down them, right? Some of these alleyways between these buildings are too narrow for my big ass to go down at all, and we'd be chasing the bad guy through one of these little Afghani villages. And they're plugged in with the people there. So some of the houses, some of the little sheds, little mud huts, they have, they'll have a front door and a back door, and they'll have a second secret back door that's got a carpet hanging over it or whatever. And they'll squirt into one of those buildings and out the back and squirrel all through these little alleyways to disappear. I would be running into it with an infantry platoon with me, and they'd break off into 2 and 3 man teams and run here and there. And the reason we never lost anybody going into those alleyways, and I'm going to come back a little bit to that, is I had a private with me, and I won't say his name on air, but you know who you are, buddy. I had a private with me. And there's a few people who watch the show who remember this guy. So I hope y'all see this episode and reach out to my boy. But I had this private with me that would scurry up the side of a building. Oh man, it warms my heart just to think about it for a moment. He would scurry up the side of a building, and knowing that the bad guy's got to loop in and out of those little corridors. He would scoot up the side of the building and run across rooftops in a straight line, right? And we would shout to him, he turned left, he turned right, right, and keep him on point. And he would shoot and sprint across the tops of these buildings and jump off the top of a 1 or 2 story building and land knees first on the perpetrator's neck and bear him to the ground. Didn't matter if the guy was armed.
Parkour.
Yeah, hardcore parkour. And I mean this private this private ran to death 3 high-dollar elliptical machines just doing daily PT in Afghanistan that Uncle Sam had to replace. On your dime, my apologies. But
sounds like it was worth it.
There's a whole lot of story behind him too, because he was a troubled private for a minute and came around and became one of the best soldiers I ever worked with. But he would run across the top of that morning and across the top of those buildings and jump down. I got you, bitch! And just boom, knees on, put him on the ground, win. Now let me help you understand why that's important. Like Cameron and I were talking about this earlier. When you're chasing a bad guy, for local police, there's about an 80-90% chance that they're in an area they're unfamiliar with. And so when they turn, it's just because they're trying to maneuver. But there's that 10 to 20% chance that you're dealing with a bad guy who's in an area that he's very familiar with, which means that every time he changes directions, it might be because he knows he's got help. His boy's house is right there. He can run in and get some backup. Or he knows that if he turns this corner, there's a little low brick wall he can jump over, and then he can blast you when you come around the corner on him. When you're in country fighting bad guys in their homes, in their home villages, there is a 100% chance that every time he changes direction, it's because he knows where he's going. Right? So when you've got your spider monkey that can run up the side of the building and run a straight line and hit him from the sky, that is absolutely indispensable.
Valuable. Yeah, that's one of the things Papa Sheepdog, he was always real frank with me about being a cop and what he had to deal with and the things that were, even emotionally taxing for him. And, he told me more than once that chasing somebody in the dark like that is just one of the most dangerous, scary things you can do, because every time they turn a corner or change direction, like, the threat level changes. And I mean, you never know when suddenly anything from bricks to bullets are going to be coming back your direction, and you're running face first into it. So that's what was going on with this cop. And it's one of the things that, Officer Tatum breaks down on his video. Normally, when you're chasing a perp, they run until you bulldog them to the ground, or they run until they get away, or they realize they ain't getting away and they hit the ground and they spread their hands out because they know they're done. It's over. So when this kid stopped and then wouldn't turn around, starts acting all shifty and shady, and he's clearly pulling something out of his pocket that looks a whole hell of a lot like a gun. I mean, we're now at the absolute maximum threat level, period. End of sentence.
Yeah, and to be clear, the body cam footage is out there, the photography is out there. There is no doubt. There's no speculation around this. The kid had a gun. He had it in his hand as the police officer approached him. And that's not the one you want. I'm not saying that the kid deserved to die. That's not what I'm saying. But let me ask you this. Hey, Mama, it's 3:00 in the morning. Where's your babies at?
Yeah, and look, if something were to happen to one of my kids, it wouldn't matter. He lives in Chicago. Of course he had a gun. Bravo, Polytech. Bravo.
Yeah, and actually, we're going to talk a little bit about some Second Amendment in just a second here. Because, shoot, buddy.
No, but at 3:00 in the morning, your 13-year-old is out running around with a 21-year-old, firing shots, Yeah, that's gang activity. Did I just make an assumption? Yep. And I'm going to stick with it.
No. You drew a reasonable conclusion from substantial available evidence. That's not an assumption.
Whatever. I'm taking an educated guess. I realize I can't prove my theory. I think it's the correct theory and that there's a lot of evidence to support it. But I'm okay with taking the guess, having a theory. You're out doing gangbanger shit, and where's the magic line? Where is it? Oh, you're 13 years old, you're doing gangbanger shit, you get killed, it's a tragedy. But you're 21 years old, you're doing gangbanger shit, and you get killed, and suddenly, oh, well, live by the sword, die by the sword. And I'm not saying that there's not a difference between a minor and a legal adult. I recognize that our society and most civilized societies place value on youth. You
know what they say. You know what they say. Everybody wants to be a gangbanger until it's time to get gangbanged.
I did not know that was a thing they say, sir.
It is now, as far as I'm concerned.
One day, I want to meet the they. I really do, because they talk a lot, don't they?
Oh, no, I can't do it. We need to talk about the they another time, because Kierkegaard, yes, Soren, you should play Jesus on Hurt Me Plenty level, Kierkegaard had rather a great deal of interesting things to say about the they.
Steve Lowry says in the comments, wait, Chicago had a gun. Isn't that illegal? Yes, actually.
No, as far as I know, Uncle Steve, there's nothing in the law that prevents a state from owning a gun. Or a city, rather. So if Chicago, but frankly, if Chicago had a gun, then a police officer should shoot him. So let's talk about the Second Amendment issue here a little bit. This kid got shot because he had a gun. All right? Now, under the law, at present, this is a clean shoot. But as far as we know, this kid was being pursued by the police basically because he ran from the police with a gun after the police were called because somebody fired a gun where they shouldn't have been firing a gun. And I'm totally comfortable with laws that say you're not allowed to fire guns in certain places except under self-defense circumstances, right? I'm not saying it's okay for the law to prevent you from keeping and bearing your firearm in any place whatsoever, especially federal buildings. But to say that you shouldn't fire your weapon in certain places, that seems like the only reasonable restriction on guns. The only common sense gun control measure that I can think of that I might be tolerant of under the law is that there are places where you can't fire your weapon. Okay, now, that said, this kid was basically shot for having a gun. So, I want you to understand what this means. Every person you know who voted for Joe Biden and keeps demanding gun control, this right here, people being shot by armed authority figures for the crime of merely owning a firearm, this is what they're voting for. They're voting for armed authority to murder citizens for the simple act of having the possession of a firearm. Now, this case is somewhat more complex than that because the kid raised his hands too fast. But, right, and I mean, in this instance, there was a reasonable expectation that the officer had that the kid had a gun, and as he made a quick maneuver with his hands, that was danger, Will Robinson territory, this cop was perfectly justified in firing that weapon. But
well, it's
that was
Thomas Waller.
precipitated. That was precipitated by him moving on this kid because the kid had a gun. So everybody that's talking about common sense gun control, everybody that voted for a Democrat, every Democrat that currently serves, every single one of them, the thing that they are voting for is exactly this: the killing of American citizens for having a firearm.
Yeah, Thomas Waller even points out in the chat that he says, dude, it was crazy. 0.4 seconds between when the kid had a gun in his hand and when the cop fired. Humans can't react.
Like I said when you and I were talking about it earlier, the gun was still in the air when the bullet hit the kid.
Yeah. Yeah. So...
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And going back to something that your Uncle Steve said, yeah, Chicago's a city that's got some pretty severe gun restrictions. And yet somehow Chicago is also a city where 13-year-olds can hook up with 21-year-olds at 3 o'clock in the morning and fire guns down alleyways. So, I mean, piss up a rope with gun control. And that brings me to the next thing that I want to talk about on this topic.
The use of the youth. Them Chicagoans, man, them gangsters, they like to use the youths. We know that the adult, the 21-year-old, fired the weapon. Right? We've got that on the security footage. And once again, go check out B. Tatum. He's actually assembled the footage together to show the timeline and discuss it. So that's my source for this one, is having seen the footage. We know that the adult is the one that fired the 8 shots, and then the kid had the gun. Now, we do not yet know if they both had guns, but I suspect it's more likely that what happened was the 21-year-old fired the gun and then handed it to the 13-year-old so he would go get rid of the gun. I'm interested to see, because I haven't seen any reporting on what happened with those 8 shots. I don't know if this guy just went and randomly just fired 8 shots to fire 8 shots for no apparent reason, or if he actually shot somebody. In the surveillance footage that shows him firing the gun, it looks very much, there's a white SUV driving down the street. It looks very much like he's firing the gun into the SUV. I haven't seen any reporting on whether or not he actually shot somebody. And it may be that SUV kept driving. You know, he did hit somebody in it. It was other gangsters or something like that. Now, that's just pure speculation. What is not pure speculation is more of an educated guess, a conclusion drawn from the evidence, is that we know that the adult had the firearm. He fired it several times, and then the kid had a firearm. We don't know if it was the same firearm, but the likely case is that it was. What these gangsters like to do is they like to use kids that are under the age of 16. I mean, they need to be under the age of 18 for it, but it's much preferable to the gangsters if they're even under 16. They use young kids to do bad stuff because they won't be charged as an adult. That's what they're banking on. So he's hoping that he can pass the gun off to the kid will run and ditch the gun. And even if the kid gets caught, well, then it's on the kid. There's no proof to tag the adult, and the kid's not going to get in any real trouble with the law.
Yeah, that seems really likely that you would use a young person to basically shield yourself from consequences, because people, again, going back to that whole liberal Western civilization thing, we tend to treat children as sacrosanct, and bad guys know how to use that to their advantage. And as Polytech points out, that's pretty typical gang behavior. I'm inclined to agree. The thing that's going to be the absolute worst about this is like the tweet that I saw from Rashida Tlaib on Twitter. Y'all, I'm on Twitter just to be trashy. I am. I don't think of it as useful. I'm on Twitter
No,
so that I can.
I
make
got
fun of-
on Twitter just to advertise and grow this show, but I ain't gonna lie, I've been getting a little more trashy on Twitter lately.
Like, sir, I follow Bernie Sanders and the
Yes.
Squad, and I mean, I also follow like Elon Musk. He's actually pretty damn funny on Twitter. But I follow.
I
These
love
left-wing
Elon Musk,
people.
man.
I follow these left wing people just so I can take pot shots at them, especially the ones that I know can't block me. It's satisfying. But
Right.
Rashida Toledo tweeted this morning, and this is my dramatic interpretation. He was just 13. I just can't. He was a baby. Yeah, he was a baby out running around at 3 o'clock in the morning with a gun. And that is going to. I am really afraid that we are going to pay in some serious blood for this one, because this is a clean shoot through and through all the way. Absolutely. Kid had a gun in his hand. The cop had probably already made the decision to fire. As Chris said, the gun might even have still been in the air when the cop was pulling the trigger on the gun. So this is absolutely a clean shoot. This cop will not get indicted. There's just no way. And great, now instead of just having Minneapolis riot, we're also going to have Chicago riot. Fantastic.
Yeah, I suspect there's going to be another incident in Atlanta and one in probably somewhere near D.C. They want the riots.
Oh, yeah, no, they totally want the riots. And so they're going to run with the narrative that he was unarmed, that he was putting his hands up. And here's the bitch, y'all. Here's the bitch. He was putting his hands up. He was. If you go back and you watch the video in slow-mo, he's obviously putting his hands up after he threw the gun away. Unfortunately, the human brain doesn't work in slow-mo. The human brain, funnily enough, operates at about 24 frames a second. And it is what it is. And I'm not just trying to make light of this. Like, this is gallows humor. Okay? They're going to show the picture of this kid with his hands up, putting his hands up. And then they're going to tell you that the cop shot him after he put his hands up. Well, the cop shot him while he was putting his hands up as he threw the gun away.
Yeah, go watch the body cam footage. By the time that picture was taken where the kid's got his hands up, the bullet was already out of the officer's weapon, and the gun that the kid was throwing away was still in the air. It hadn't hit the ground yet.
Yeah,
that's the time. That's the kind of time frame we're talking about here.
Yeah, I see your comment, Mr. Waller. In this case, I understand why Chauvin was indicted and all of that. I don't think this one will be indicted. Like, there's it is such a textbook clean shoot. You could argue that there's gray area in what happened with Derek Chauvin. You can't argue that there was gray area here. The kid was acting shady, and the cop saw a gun in his hand, and then he made rapid motions with his hands. And so the cop shot him. That is a clean shoot.
Yeah, the only cleaner shoot I could think of is Rayshard Brooks.
Yeah. Oh, the Ballad of Rayshard Brooks. If you're new to our channel, you should go back and check that one out. It's one of the few that we put together that is not a live stream. But yeah, we're going to pay in blood for this. We are. And it is going to spread. And just like there are people that still believe Trump colluded with the Russians, and just like people believe that Mike Brown actually had his hands up and was saying, don't shoot. And
there are still people who believe that Breonna Taylor was in bed when she died.
Like she wasn't all over the warrants.
Well, no, she was standing in the hallway when she was shot.
I know. I just, if you go back and you look at that case, no. I'm living with a man, but I have no idea that he's moving literal pounds of drugs every week, and there's dead
in the
bodies
trunk of
going
my car, which I'm driving back and forth between the two drug houses. Yeah, I got no idea what's going on.
When did that happen?
No, officer, that body was already in the trunk when I rented the car.
That's not a good defense. It never is. No, those are not my drugs. They just came with the car.
She'd have been better off going with, well, officer, he just needed killing.
But yeah,
that's a defense a good attorney can work with.
There's going to be riots. This is going to further a narrative that is just more and more and more bullshit. And y'all, I'm telling you, I'll plant my flag on this hill right here. If you hear Dindu, and let me be clear, Dindu, D-I-N-D-U, it's a slur. It's an offensive one. And It is a deliberately offensive slur. As in, he didn't do nothing. He didn't see nothing. He didn't hear nothing. And every time you hear the "he didn't do nothing" headline, it's bullshit. As in, didn't do.
Unless he's under the age of about 16 or 17, he didn't do a lot.
Yeah, his didn't do was a doo-doo. Okay, that's And honestly, man, this was gang activity. He's 13 years old. He's more than old enough to have participated in a whole bunch of shit. We don't know about it, and we'll never know about it. And his mama's gonna go on TV, and his hands were up, and I just don't understand what happened. No, you understand exactly what happened. It's sad, and I feel for you. I would be heartbroken if this was one of my children. Even if my child was a piece of shit and this happened to them, I would be heartbroken. I would. But you understand exactly why in the hell this happened. Kid had a gun, and he tried to be cute, and it's Firearms Friday, so let's have an additional firearms, lesson. Don't be cute with your guns. Don't do that. Guns are not there for being cute. And he thought he'd be cute, and it got him shot.
Damn. Polytech says when the autopsy photos show his tats, we'll know. Yeah, that's true. And ouch.
Yeah, that's it's not unreasonable.
And Waller, I'm not saying he should be gotten shot for what he was doing, but the potential for getting shot was there.
I will.
And he should have. And you cannot reasonably.
In front of the cops, you should get shot.
Yeah.
Don't wave a gun in front of the cops. I'm sorry that he was 13. I'm sorry if I sound like a jerk, but I'm not actually that sorry. Like, don't wave a gun don't go out at 3:00 in the morning and fire 8 random shots down an alleyway in a high crime area, run from the cops, act shady in an alleyway, and then try and be cute with your firearm. At some point in time, stupid hurts, and it hurts.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't think I'd get quite that fired up. I'm not mad at you, Waller. I just get passionate. Normally, I'm driving down the road, and I can't be passionate.
You'd like Waller. All right. I think that's about all I've got for this one, Cameron. I think I'm about spent on it.
Yeah, I understand. Hey, everybody that's watching, please go check out our friends, Polytech. They're super cool people. It's Alex. It's Danny. Vernon Jones is going to run for governor here in Georgia. He's a politician in Georgia with a let's say colored past. That is a fair assessment. But
Blue.
he's a Democrat that has seen the light and is now going to run for governor. And our friends at Polytech are going to have him on the show. So go check out Polytech. He's the one commenting in the thread. Hit him on YouTube and Facebook. I'll be interested to see their conversation with Vernon.
And y'all, for real, I mean, the conversation with Vernon, I've talked to Vernon several times. It's not just that he's an important public figure and probably has a decent shot at getting You can see the comments, right, Cameron? Okay, good.
Danny, you almost made me spit my beer.
It's not just that Vernon's an important character and an interesting guy, but I've hung out with Vernon a couple times, had lunch with him. He's funny. He's a funny dude. He's a cool cat to chit chat with. So, all right, thanks for watching, guys. Do keep an eye out tomorrow. I think the majority of the show tomorrow evening is going to be only on the Southern Fried Championship Wrestling Facebook page. I'll go live a little before the bell on BFM and Just for Fun, just to kind of try and drive some of y'all as traffic over there. But I'll be live streaming the Southern Fried Championship Wrestling event, the Lethal Lottery, tomorrow evening, and I think we're going to have a blast. I'll be there with DJ Scotty and potentially somebody from the BFM. Ooh. So, we will talk to y'all soon. Love you. Y'all be safe out there. Have a good night.